I'm Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
Ramadan Kareem to everyone, all our listeners. I hope you're all having a good Ramadan. It's day 7, and I know people in the office here, everyone is a bit more relaxed, have a reflective month, and I think that was kind of needed. It's been a hectic time. Expo has ended, the start of the year has flown by, and the weather is getting cooler, although it's still nice and fresh out in the mornings and evenings. So our guests are still coming in. We're still doing Dubai Works throughout the month, and we had our 162nd, I think, episode today. It's a really interesting business story. I could have kept asking Gary lots of questions. I hope you enjoy the conversation. It's kind of similar to Hugh Mantra conversation that we had a few months ago, or also with Brew Society in this sort of drinks category. So if after this podcast that you enjoyed listening to Gary, you can go back and listen to those ones as well. Back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. This week I'm joined by Gary Lavin. He's the founder of Vithit. They are a low-calorie beverage company created with the intention of becoming an alternative to the sugar-filled drinks that are dominating the industry. So today we're going to talk about the story of Vithit, how they became a replacement to soft drink beverages, and also the beverage industry in general, and looking ahead to the future, what Gary and Vithit have planned for the future and how he's ended up in Dubai. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning.
I should say good afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming in. Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about Vithit?
Sure. I started the company back in 2000, so a long time ago. Gave me grey hair. For those of you on the podcast can't see, I have grey hair.
Did you have grey hair before? White hair before?
Well, no. I think a lot of years of business stress can give you that.
Yeah.
So I started a drinks company basically off the back of I used to see people on treadmills and taking in sports drinks back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and people always thought sports drinks were healthy. But I was a sports person myself, and I knew a little bit more than the average person. I had a bit of knowledge, and I knew that most sports drinks have lots of sugar, so about 28 grams of sugar in your average sports drink. And I kind of had an aha moment. I was watching someone on a treadmill one day, bursting a gut, and then they took in a whole bottle of one, I think it was Powerade years ago. And I was like, wow, there has to be another way. So that was kind of, I started researching into it before the internet, and I couldn't.
So in other words, like that drink that they're taking is defeating the purpose of the calories they're trying to lose because it's so full of sugar.
Yeah, without getting too technical, when you run on a treadmill for half an hour, you'll burn maybe about 180 to 200 calories for about 30 minutes. And those drinks and that sugar relates to about the same amount of calories. So you can run on a treadmill for half an hour, take in a bottle of one of those ADE drinks, one of those sugary drinks, and you won't have burnt anything. So you're kind of defeating the purpose of getting on a treadmill. So I just thought there has to be another way. And that's kind of where the idea of Vithit came.
Okay, fair enough. And so when was that, and what era was that? And you mentioned you were a sports person. We haven't actually had like an ex-athlete on the show like this, and I guess it brings up the topic of what do professional footballers or rugby players do afterwards. So how did that come about, and was that the stage where you're kind of going, oh, what do I do after my career? Or were you always an entrepreneur?
I was always entrepreneurial. Both my parents are entrepreneurs. I was a professional rugby player at the time. I got injured when I was 24, but I had been buying and selling products to my friends. I realized that at the time, it was back in like late 90s, early 2000s, guys really didn't spend too much money on themselves like they do now. Everyone, takes protein and protein drinks and all that kind of stuff and takes supplements. And I mean, back then it was actually, men had only started taking moisturizer in Dublin. It was like, it was a very, very different time and place. So when we actually put the products on the market, the first thing people said to me was, oh, it's just another sports drink. And so I had to change buyers' minds and change change consumers' minds as well. So that was the hardest part for me at the time. But as a professional athlete at the time, I knew not to be taking sports drinks. And so basically, I know you do a good bit of triathlon and cycling and that kind of stuff. And what you'll know is at your level, when you're really expending a lot of energy, you can take in sugars, and in fact you should be, or else you're just going to disappear. You're going to get really, really slim. But that's not, for 99% of people who exercise, they actually want to burn fat. And too much sugar creates excess fat because your body can't process it. So that was the general basis of which I was creating these drinks. I wanted something that just didn't have any sugar in it at all, and hence I created Vithit.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a high-end performance drink, or it's more like, as we said at the intro, to replace those sugary soft drinks that people are consuming on a regular basis.
Yeah, it was originally designed not as a performance or sports drink. It's basically to replace sugary drinks that just aren't good for you. So it took about 2 years to design the products without sugars to taste just as good as sugary drinks. So that was really the strong basis behind this, is that I wanted a product that looked just as good as those sugary drinks out there and that tasted just as good but had 80% less sugar.
And in terms of vitamins, the Vithit name, are there supplements in this as well? Is there nutritional benefits?
Yeah, so we have 100% recommended daily allowance of about 8 different vitamins in there. We have the equivalent of 1.5 cups of tea concentrated in tea leaves in there as well. So you get the benefits of teas, you get that energizing tea. And then we'll also throw a couple of minerals or herbs in there, depending on the type of reaction that we want to get out of the drink. So we've got one product, the green one, which is called Lean and Green, and that's just really low in calories and it's great for exercising. We have another one, Immunity, which has zinc and vitamin C, which is this one here.
And that'll keep on the table for those listening.
Exactly. Yeah, so that'll keep away colds and flus. So there's just and especially now, since the pandemic, people just want to be taking more vitamins anyway in their days. I've just been doing it since I was young. I was always a guy taking vitamins. But actually, I never liked taking in vitamin tablets. I just couldn't swallow them. So the process behind this was, why can't you have lots of vitamins in a drink, have it actually tasting nice, and have no sugar? Now, that took 2 years to formulate with a lot of work and a lot of science. But we got there in the end.
So you're basically providing supplements and a soft drink in a way. And how did the product launch go? How were the early years? Was it a hit straight away? No pun intended.
No, it certainly wasn't a hit at the start. No, it was I suppose it was a bit of a disaster at the start. I think a lot of people would have given up. I just had to stay determined because I genuinely believed that people eventually would cop onto it. I mean, 22 years ago, one of these flavors that I have on the table here is still the very same flavor, but the product was in completely different packaging, completely different brand name. So originally the product was called Vitz, V-I-T-Z, because in my mind, I thought that Vitz meant vitamins. And after 3 years of selling virtually no product, I couldn't afford any research. So we went to university and I got some free research done. And the university kids looked at it and went, "Oh, Weitz, it must be German." And I was like, "Oh wow, I never got it." So it took 3 weeks of head scratching, and then I came up with woke up one morning and I was like, "Vithit, maybe I've heard that before." And I went online and I registered vithit.com, and I couldn't believe that no one had thought of it before.
Yeah.
It was just one of those eureka moments. I don't know where the idea came from, I don't know where the name came from, but it just came to me. And once I registered the name, changed it was in the same bottle, changed the label, the product just took off. Sales rose by 250% overnight, just from a brand name.
Wow. But there's a couple of things in that. One is the sort of the struggle at the start, because, actually, it's natural that businesses don't struggle at the start. That's what the barrier to entry is that, market share, product fit, marketing, and all these things, can't just happen overnight. But then that persistence then to pivot, to change the name, because people are attached to names, right? Whether we have social handles or whether we have licenses or branding, you had 3 years worth of work done on one name and
killed it overnight.
Yeah,
I think part of entrepreneurship is you have to be brave. I mean, I was losing money with the original company, so the other option was to get a real job, and I didn't want to do that. So
you were just looking for solutions all the time. What can I make?
Just keep changing it till it's right. And from that day we got it right, which was, we changed the brand name and then changed the bottle and all that kind of stuff. I haven't touched the label since probably 2009. Haven't touched it.
Wow.
Because I think, you do all those changes to make sure you get it right. And I knew myself it wasn't right. I'm moving the bottle, changing the label, changing the brand name, changing the messages on the side. Once we got it right, you just don't touch it, because I know we have something really strong here. And every country we go into, it becomes the best seller in the country pretty fast.
Very good. So 2009, so what was right then? What size of business were you kind of 9-10 years in?
Oh, we were really struggling at the time, just before 09. I mean, we were, the first few years we were turning over, the first 4 or 5 years I was turning over like 50,000 euros, 70,000 euros. It really wasn't going anywhere. Then around 09, I'd say we were at about 700 to 800 grand business.
So 10 times higher,
Yeah.
longer. And Gary, what are the margins on that? If you're bringing in $100,000 or whatever, does that mean you're making money?
It depends on what your overheads are. So at the time, there was only 2 or 3 people working in the company. So we've been breaking even ever since 09, stroke making profit. And actually, we were really struggling before that. I had a team of salespeople and I had to let them all go. I had to do the sales myself. We had to really, really pare back. And I suppose I had to get my hands dirty to really understand the whole process of going out selling. I got in my car, I drove up and down the country in Ireland, and I sold the product personally into about 3,500 stores over a certain amount of time. Because if I hadn't done that, I had the company was insolvent. I was going broke. There was no doubt about it. So I had to just do it myself. So by paring all that back, we were certainly losing money before I had to let the salespeople go. And literally overnight, once the salespeople were gone, there was no more drain on the company. It was just me and one more guy. And then we could afford to pay ourselves and actually move the company onto the next level.
And then when you started making funds, you reinvested. And let's go back a little bit. So in terms of a business plan, what was the idea here? How did that, we're in Dubai now, we'll catch up, you're successful in many countries, and I'll let you explain that as well. But was that always the plan, or was it, I believe in the product, let's see where it goes?
A little bit of both. But one of the mistakes I made early was I thought that I could take over the world with no plan at all. So literally when I created the very first product, which was called Vithit, started in Ireland, wanted to take it into the UK, and it didn't hold at all. So I had to retrench, and put a stake in the ground in Ireland and say, okay, I need this to become a leading brand in the country. And then just don't move out of that country until you're successful, you're making profits, and then use those profits to go to the next country. We're not one of these companies who goes off to venture capital and raises money. We've never been that kind of company. And back in the day, nobody would give me money anyway. We couldn't get money from banks. We couldn't get money from crowdfunding. There was none of that available. So I realized...
No famous celebrities wanted to back you like 50 Cent did with...
No, that was all before that, yeah.
Vitamin Water, yeah.
With Vitamin Water, yeah. They ended up selling for 3.8 billion. So maybe I should have gone that. Maybe I should have gone that
Should have got some American rapper to back you, yeah.
But, the product, it took time to become a success in Ireland. And once I did that, then about 2013, it took a few years to become a market leader in Ireland. So it was a long old haul. And once we got to that stage, then I moved into the UK, and the UK was when it really spiked. It really started to change.
And market leader in Ireland, to put that in perspective, what was the category, or what's the size there?
So in Ireland, we kind of created the whole category. There wasn't really a wellness category on the shelves in drinks. So I think to this day, we still have about 87% of the wellness category in Ireland. It's really called a functional drink category. But we're now the 6th best-selling product of any type in Ireland in drinks. So we outsell Diet Coke, we outsell Tropicana, we'd outsell Innocent, Evian, Volvic Water, all of those major brands. So in Ireland, it's a very large brand now.
Amazing. And we'll talk about category in a second. But so then the market into the UK. The UK is obviously a bigger market than the Irish market. Yep. What size bigger is it? And how did you approach that first market entry? What did you do different?
The UK is about 10 times the size of Ireland if you're on the same level of success. We're still not on that level of success in the UK. We are the biggest selling functional drink in takeaway in the UK, which is saying something, but pound for pound, Ireland is still our best selling country. The process in the UK is a bit different. The UK buyers, rely a lot on data, whatever part of the word you're coming from. So we had to prove to a lot of ears that weren't listening what a great seller we were. And you're going into massive corporations like Tesco, Co-op, Sainsbury's, and telling them, "Wow, we've got this great product. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it different?" And they're just going, "Okay, show me some data." And we didn't have any in the UK, so we really had to create some. So what I used is our success in Tesco in Ireland to give ourselves a base to go into Tesco in the UK. We got a trial in Tesco in the UK. And that was so successful. Then Sainsbury's came knocking on the door, and then we went into Boots and WH Smith, and we got a lot of headline companies then.
So even though the product, the name was right and the label was right, you still had to almost drive around, and you still had to do the early things that you did in Ireland to get it off the ground.
Yeah, in 2014, Tesco gave me a listing, and we were down the back of the store. And if you know anything about soft drinks, you've got to be at the front of the store in the fridges. So I kept saying to the buyer and the commercial director there, I kept saying to them, "Look, we really need to be in the front of store." And the buyer kept going, "No, you're not ready yet." So I waited a year politely, and then eventually I hired myself a moped, and I got in the back of the moped in December 2014, coming into 2015, and I drove myself around to 40 stores around where I lived, all across London, and I convinced the local managers to stick our products on the shelf beside the big ones like vitamin water, etc. And I was driving through sleet and snow, so it wasn't fun. So then I hired a sales guy, and I said, "Look, just look after those 50 accounts for 6 months." And 6 months later, we got some internal data, and it showed that actually Vithit was number 1, 3, 4, and 5 bestsellers out of all the convenience drinks on the shelves. So then we got listed.
Wow. Okay, interesting. And so we're fast forward sort of 8 years. We're in Dubai. Are you doing the same again now in the UAE? You mentioned you lived in London, so do you move to the market to kind of launch there? Is that and is Vithit in the market, and how's it doing as well?
I haven't bought a moped here yet.
No.
It's a bit too hot.
One of those scooters that people are going around in?
The drivers are a bit too crazy. It'd be a bit dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the size of the market. Yes, the Gulf region here has massive potential, and we've been selling here for about 4 years, and it's getting bigger all the time. It just depends on what the market needed. At the time, the UK was really needed. I needed to go to the UK. We've got a good team here already. I didn't need to come here, but I just felt that after the pandemic, in a general business sense, I felt I didn't need to be in Ireland anymore. Before I had to be in Ireland to kind of meet all the employees and meet all the buyers, etc. But you can do all that online now. So I figured, what better time? It was the only bonus out of a terrible 2 years that we all had, is that actually you can now do your work. It's accepted that you can do your work in other countries. So I basically said to my wife and said, "Look, let's move." And she said, "Okay, where do you want to go?" And I said, "We've got a good business in Dubai. We need to grow in that region. Why not move over there for a few years?" So came here about 7 months ago, and I don't regret it a bit yet.
Very good. Yeah, you're here for now. So sort of like 22 years or so into the business, obviously it's successful. It's market leader in some countries. What sort of size company is it? What category? We can talk about how the category developed, but are you kind of happy with where Vithit is now, or do you see that, wow, this is sizable? I never thought I'd be this size.
I don't think any entrepreneur is ever happy where they are. Like this year, we'll sell 35 million bottles and cans of the world. And if you'd have told me that 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. So on one side of the coin, yes, I'm really content with how it is. But I don't think any entrepreneur would actually ever sit down and say, "That's it, we're done growing." We like to grow it between 20 and 25% a year, no matter what year it is, no matter what level we're at, and we'll do the same this year. So a lot of our growth areas would be certainly here around the Gulf region. We're growing at a really fast pace in Australia at the moment. And our other countries like Holland and Belgium have a lot of growth to happen as well.
Interesting. So what about we could talk about the future, but what about the other markets? It's a global brand. You've done successful market entry, Australia, UAE, UK. How do you view market entry, and how do you pick these markets like Belgium and other markets?
It's still a little bit of scratch it and see. It depends on if we have a good distributor that approaches us. A lot of the time we turn down distributors if they just don't think they're strong enough. It depends on the relationship that I might build with them. So one of them, for instance, in Belgium, I spotted a really, really strong distributor, and I him probably 8 or 10 times, both on email and phone calls, and he kept saying, don't like it. I wouldn't take no for an answer. So eventually I sent him an email and I said, well, we're now in, so he was in Belgium. I said, we're now in France, Holland, Germany, Austria. I said, we have you surrounded. I said, the product is going to come in whether you like it or not. I think you should get involved. So he kind of laughed and said, okay, we'll take it on. And we're now his third best-selling product that he has, and it's growing probably 36% a year. And he loves us. He thinks we're great. He's delighted that we pushed him. So that was just a feeling that you have. A lot of the time, you basically just say, "Wow, those distributors are really good. We know that they will do a strong job for us." We're currently we're in talks with a really good distributor in Kuwait currently. So I'm flying up in a week's time and sit down with those guys and have a chat and see if we can come to some sort of an agreement. So it really is just a feeling that you get. If you have enough money to expand, you can't go too fast. If you're expanding at 20% a year, your costs will rise significantly. So you've just got to have really good people in the background. So I'm the one that kind of makes the overall decisions, and I have people much sharper than me, doing the maths and kind of going, well, you can't spend that there. You need to pull back there.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. That's so interesting, relating the market, the growth of the company with the market entry as well. But to understand the industry a little bit more, when you say distributors, are they crucial for market entry? Is that still now with sort of the direct to consumers? Are the distributors really the key holders in markets? And what is their remit? Do they manufacture, or do they literally, you get the product manufactured and where you manufacture it, and they order from you, and they put your bottles on the shelves with their mopeds and they get the sales?
Yeah, distributors are an essential part of it. Like, if you have the worst and you have a great distributor, they'll get you on the shelf once. If you have a brilliant product with no distributor, you'll never get on the shelf. So we have a great product, and once you have a good distributor, they'll get you on the shelf. Because if I'm, let's say, to go to a country that I've never stepped foot in, let's say to Spain, all the relationships with the likes of Spinneys, Carrefour, those kind of companies, he's calling into them every day. He has relationships with the buyers. So I will produce the product. I'll send it across the water to him. He will make his 25, 30% on top of that. He'll sell it to the retailer, and the retailer will then make a percentage on top of that. You can go directly to retailers, but if you do, you need to have sales developers going in, making sure your product's on the shelf at all times. So distributors are a really essential part of what.
And do any companies like yours have their own distributors, or like is the system sort of fixed? Is this how it works? If you're
no, that's a good question. You can actually have your own distributors. We do a lot of our own stuff in the UK. We don't in Ireland, which is strange, but we have one of the best independent distributor in the country in Ireland. We use them. They're the Red Bull distributors, and they have so much experience. So we basically, we have a great relationship with those guys. I couldn't find a good enough distributor in the UK, so we decided to create it. We have a team of 6 people over in the UK. It's grown from 1 over the last 3 or 4 years, and so they will do a lot of that. They'll do most of that job. They'll get a third-party just truck to basically deliver it directly to Sainsbury's, to Tesco, that kind of stuff. All of the other countries we use distributors in. We'd rather not have to do that, and we're happy to give a percentage to somebody else who can do it, because the less people and the less logistics that you have to get involved in, the easier the business can be.
Interesting. So talking about the history of the company, and in terms of consumer behavior and habits around functional drinks, how would you describe how that market has changed? Like, obviously it can be a good brand, and marketing can influence purchase, but clearly there's some sort of shift, right? Like when we were kids, we were drinking fizzy drinks, right? And now, I'm not sure if kids still are, but basically there's definitely been a shift in terms of consumption you've got more competitors now. Yeah. You created the category. How would you describe what's happened? And do you think you've kind of followed that, your right place, right time at some degree?
Yeah, to be honest, I think we were slightly ahead of the curve. So if this drink was created in 2000, people were still drinking those sugary drinks. I think social media, and before that magazine articles, were all basically espousing the dangers of sugar around the early 2000s, but it took 8 to 10 years to really seep in that sugar is so dangerous, not just for your teeth. We knew that back in the day, but we didn't realize that obesity was directly linked to sugar. And that's one of the problems that all developing nations have. And that's one of my personal bugbears. You don't have to give your kids sugary drinks. And it breaks my heart when I see kids overweight and the parents giving them, yogurts full of sugar, muffins full of sugar, colas full of sugar, all those things. It just doesn't have to be that way. And that's one of the reasons that we've had a nice, healthy alternative. So the people are definitely changing. They're running, they're going out and doing kite surfing and all that kind of stuff. There's a whole new level of consumers that are out there doing that, but they're probably, the 20%ers, and everybody behind is kind of lagging behind. But before then, just in Ireland, for instance, back when we were young, nobody went out jogging at 6 o'clock in the morning. Nobody went to the gym. There was only 3 gyms in the whole of Dublin, the capital city. That's all changed now. There's got to be probably 100 gyms, maybe 200 gyms in just in Dublin alone. Personal trainers everywhere. People are jogging down the beaches. So there really has been a whole cultural shift. And so we were just ahead of that. So yes, the timing is absolutely great now. But when we first launched the product, nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted it because they did it. They're like, no sugar. What's wrong with sugar?
Okay, so it's not necessarily for performance. It's not necessarily, you don't need lots of high performance athletes to be walking down the aisles of Spinneys. But what you've got is someone who's more health conscious, who's got a gym membership. They're filling their trolley and they see yours and they go, oh, I'm more conscious now, I'm going to buy that.
Yeah, I think it's even a step back from that. We're so mainstream now in a lot of countries. It's basically people now saying, oh, that looks like a nice product. And then they'll try it and they'll go, wow, it tastes really great. And then they look at the back and go, oh, it's really healthy. Vitamins, and it's got, so we like to be mainstream. So yes, the people who originally started taking this product were just wanted to cut down their sugars, but there was a survey done in the UK recently, and 76% of people wanted to reduce their sugar. So it really is a mainstream option now. People now are reading the back of products. They now know sugar is bad for you, and they're now counting how many sugars they need in a day. And just one really important thing for people who have kids, your kids should really only be taking 15 grams of sugar a day. And as adults, we can only take 25. So just a really basic thing to keep your kids healthy is just start reading the back of sugar labels. So your average can of Coke contains 23 grams of sugar. So if a kid has 23 grams of sugar, there's 7 or 8 he's gone over. He or she has gone over in the day. And, you can't work that off. And on top of that, you'll give them, grapes in the evening. You might give them a little bit of ice cream or whatever. And suddenly they're on 40 grams of sugar and they can only have 15. So you just have to be so careful these days, because kids obviously come first. And obesity is just such a big issue at the moment.
And obesity is one thing, but one of the reasons I cut out sugar is it just doesn't give you the right energy. It just messes up how I think. It's like not a good substance overall, irrespective of weight, right? It's just there's so many things that are related to unhealthy products, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'm actually hypoglycemic. I never realized it when I was playing rugby years ago. You didn't have those tests.
What does that mean?
So what that means is I used to take sugar. I'd go to the cinema at night before a game and I'd have a big bag of sweets, and I wouldn't be able to wake up properly the next day, and I'd be kind of fuzzy headed. And that's hypoglycemia. It's nothing major, but it's just something that just impairs your whole thought process, and it makes you less aware. Yeah, so there's just no benefits to sugar. And if people say, oh, you need some sugar, you get sugar in everything. There's sugar in everything you do. Things, yeah. So I would say to someone, just take as little sugar as you can, and you'll just get it in your diet anyway.
Yeah, interesting. So about the category as well, there's lots of interest in entrepreneurs and startups and things like that. And yeah, people can launch products, but often I hear, and I don't know if this is right, don't start a water or something like that. It just sounds like a really hard industry to get into.
It is, yeah.
Why so? And follow on from that is, were the big competitors and the incumbents, did they want to squash you? Was it hard to break in?
Yeah, well, the reason why it's so hard to make it is because the shelves are probably 95 to 99% filled with massive conglomerates like Coca-Cola, the company that owns Lucasade, Britvic, all of the large companies, and they have so much money invested in it that when you get on the shelf, they have 100 sales reps calling around, where you might have one. And so they'll just move you aside and put you to the back. And so it really is a slog and a fight. And I see so many brands failing year after year after year.
Really?
I would say across the world, if there's probably 5,000 drinks brands created across the world, maybe 2 or 3 might make it in a year, anywhere in the world. Like it's an exceptionally difficult market. So first of all, you have to have something that's really different. It's hard to create something different. Second of all, you have to have something that looks amazing. Then it's got to taste amazing. And then on top of that, you have to have enough cash to get you on the shelf. And then you have to have a good distributor to hold you on the shelf. So there's like 5 or 6 moving parts that just make it a very, very difficult business. But it's a great business once you get over that hump. But it takes a while.
Interesting. And so as well as the behavior changes of people in consuming the product, how's the purchasing changed over the years? Of Coca-Cola, what's the percentage that they sell from shelves versus in cafes versus other ways that they'll sell? And how does your business relate to, how's your split in where you sell the product?
Well, their platform, the likes of Coke, is definitely getting smaller. And they made a statement, I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, that in order for them to grow as a brand, as a company, they would have to buy other innovative brands because they know that their platform is burning. Like people are moving away from sugars. So they go into less developed countries who aren't as educated, and they'll sell what they call Big Red. They'll sell Coca-Cola to the masses there, and they keep their numbers up that way. And then they buy innovative companies in order to do that. So the developed countries are all reducing their sugar intake. So slightly every year, their platform gets a little bit smaller, and companies like us are taking eating a little bit of the pie every time. So that is a definite pattern that's changed. And Coca-Cola as a company, they're not just Coke. They have hundreds of brands they bought around the world. So
like
that's
waters and things as well. Yeah.
Waters. Yeah. They'll have waters here, they'll have waters in New Zealand, Australia, all that kind of stuff. And that's how they spread themselves wide. They're just not relying on just one brand anymore.
But are they still, I guess I'm getting at, how does one purchase a drink these days? Has that changed? Because I can't remember, when I moved here 10 years ago, I used to go to Spinneys once a week. I haven't been inside a Spinneys in 5 years, I don't think.
Yeah.
Right. So how has that changed? Are people buying your drink now on grocery apps? Are you in cafes as well? Or how has everything changed?
Yeah. When we go into any country, one of the things we try and do is take over the cafe culture, because that's where the opinion formers are. The cool people, for want of a better word, a better expression. So we will always go in there and try and get them trying the product and tasting it and liking it. And once they like it, it's like a pincer. They go forward and other people will follow. And that's kind of the main part of how we'll build our market strategy. And in a place like this, Dubai seems to be, in any of the countries that I've been, seems to be way ahead on home deliveries, even than UK, Australia, any of the countries that we work in. So this is a slightly different market. So you still have to build your product in the cafe cultures, then people will know to order it online. And that's a slightly different way. Obviously, we sell online in most of the territories we're at. Ever since COVID, obviously people couldn't get to shops. So we had to totally change our model from putting it in a truck and getting on the shelf to actually sending it direct to ourselves. So, but here, the direct to consumer or the online selling is just massive here. So it's a slightly different thing. So it's harder to get because you open a page, there is no shelf there, and they'll have all the biggest brands there. So you're like way down on the click rate. So yes, you have to build it in the traditional places like cafes and schools, universities, golf clubs. That's kind of where we sell.
Okay, interesting. So 20-something years in, it's probably unusual for a company to be independent with one product name with a variation of flavors.
Yeah.
Is that how you are? Do you have other businesses? Do you have other product lines coming up? And do you think that's a benefit of remaining independent in this way?
Yeah, the advantage is that we can pivot really fast. We can add on an extra line. We created sparkling Vithit, an all-natural sparkling Vithit, which we don't have here yet. We're going to perhaps launch it in the next 9 months here. And we've lots of innovation coming through. So that's the positive side. The downside is that you don't have the power that any of these large companies have. That when we do launch a new brand, So an extension like the cans that we have. If I am in the UK, if I'm Britvic, they're on the shelves of 25,000 stores. So if they're creating a new brand, they literally just go overnight, bang, and they'll be on 15,000 stores like in a week. And then they'll build it up over 6 months and get it into all 25,000. So that's the advantage that those guys have. We have an advantage that we can make decisions really fast. We don't have to go to a board. And, you know, it's still kind of touchy-feely, for want of a better expression. I will still say, look, I think we need another flavour. I think we need cans. I don't get bogged down in doing market research and saying, oh, you know, people like or dislike that flavour. It's just kind of a feeling, and you have to trust your gut and basically say, you know, I believe that sparkling cans is the way to go. We're going to add that onto our range, and out you go. So we've launched that in 3 countries so far, and it's going really well.
Yeah, and so I guess, you know, other people like bigger conglomerates might have different ranges of drinks, but they might have different products as well. Like, have you thought of that, you know, yogurts or energy bars or things like that? Or
yeah, I actually created a protein bar probably in about 2012, and it failed. I think it was just before that whole protein phase that came in, and I think the reason why it failed is because, you know, we were so focused on our bottles, we never really gave it the attention that it was due. And I think that changed my mindset, and that not I'm afraid to extend the brand into that. You know, we will probably go into food products eventually, but we're really good at products, and the world is a very big place. So if we're really good at something, that's what we lead with. So know what you're good at and just keep doing that, just in more places.
But is it a natural thing, like you mentioned, or I mentioned Vitamin Water, but you mentioned it was acquired, but is it a natural thing if you're so, like, you would be attractive to conglomerates who are, as you said, who are like Coca-Cola, are looking at the trendy new products?
Sure.
Have you had offers? Are you happy enough with how the business is going at the moment?
Yeah, we grow at about 25% a year. So when you get up to a certain level, that's excellent. You know, it's a really good.
Definitely.
It's easy to grow at 25% a year when you're going from 50 to 75. But you know, when you're turning over in excess of, you know, 17 million euros, you're getting up to 20. It becomes a really good thing to add on an extra 25% of that. So yes, we've been approached on multiple occasions. I would never say never. The only time I would ever consider it's, you know, we've been approached by people just saying, look, invest, and we're like, no thanks, we don't need money. It's because we're a profitable company. What we really want and what is the really strong presence of international distribution in lots of different countries. So if you want to grow really fast, you know, Coca-Cola's or one of those very large companies come along, and they don't just invest money in, they invest strategy. So they'll be able to say, okay, you want to launch in Germany? We'll get you in Germany overnight, or we'll get you bigger in the UK, or we'll go into France. And that's the advantage that you would get from one of those companies. So I would never say never, but so far I've turned everybody down because, you know, when we were offered something last year, and yet we're 25% more again.
Yeah.
So you kind of look at it. Now, there is a stage at which you kind of go, like, how much is enough? But at the moment, we're just having fun with it, and it's a really enjoyable place. Like, I lost money for, I'd say, 9 or 10 years. So we've been profitable since about 2009. So I do remember the bad days.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of enjoying
it. Yeah. But that's interesting. So a strategic partner might be of interest, but if you flip that around, if you had the right amount of money, you could buy you could almost invest or acquire that strategic partnership distributor network. Maybe it's not as easy. You know, the large companies have barriers there for a reason. You go into any shelf across anywhere in Europe or across here, and 95% of the shelf is owned by huge conglomerates. So in order to get onto those shelves easier, you have to be part of them. Yeah. Okay.
So just a money play doesn't really work in our business.
Okay.
And hence that's why I've defended and I've stayed away from it all to this time.
Fair enough. You're here in Dubai, young family are here as well, and you're running this business and you're enjoying it. But it's still growing at 20-30% a year. That's there's obviously pain points with growth. How do you manage that? How do you manage growth? Because also the other thing about growth when you're been along longer is that the numbers are bigger. So the 30% is bigger in terms of product, managing people. So the headaches are bigger. How do you manage that?
I hire really good people and get out of their way.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a micromanager. I trust our CFO, managing director. I trust all of our salespeople. So they might come to me and go, okay, we really need to get into Germany. I say, okay, what's that going to cost? And we just look at it in really simple terms. And the CFO will usually look at me and go, it's going to cost too much money. And I'll push that as an entrepreneur should. And we'll always find somewhere in the middle. But Australia, for instance, is a perfect example of what you're saying. So about 4 years ago, we entered Australia and we just couldn't get it going. We had a distributor and the distributor just wasn't working with us. They weren't doing their job properly. So we decided to hire a guy on the ground. We paid him a significant salary. And for 2 years, he was pretty much treading water. Then about a year ago, we just suddenly hit gold over there. We got into the 2 largest retailers in the country. And the product 12 months ago per month was doing 900 cases, and now it's doing 30,000 cases a month. So the increase has been just infinite. I go back to CFO now and I say, see, you were telling me to close that place, I told you. So, that kind of thing is just a little bit of entrepreneurial grit that you just have to hold out, because we were losing money. But you've got to just hold out and because you've got to grow.
Yeah. So how, again, like, as your lifestyle changed when you were managing it, there's good people there, but they still need a leader. You now, yes, the digital world has allowed us to manage other entities, but it must be a strenuous enough business to run.
Not anymore.
No.
because I hire great people and get out of the way.
Yeah.
So we have a managing director there who runs the nuts and bolts of the company every day. So I'm kind of at a stage now where I'm more strategic, and I will basically say, right, we need new brands, we need new extensions, we need to go into this country, and I will go and meet our distributors. But the day-to-day workings of it, I have passed that off.
Amazing.
And lifestyle-wise, it's been a game changer. I mean, I don't get stressed anymore. I don't wake up and go, what are we going to do? If we can't pay that bill or any of that kind of stuff. That's other people's headaches. And I think that's a really important point. A lot of entrepreneurs can't let go, so they're constantly stressing. I mean, I did stress for 12, 15 years, but I don't want to have that stress anymore. And we are doing, unless people were you hired the wrong people and they're doing the wrong job, then you have to. That did happen about 6 years ago, and I had to get back into the company, or 5 years ago, I had to get back in the company and dig it out of a certain hole. And it wasn't detrimental, but you've got to keep an eye on it. So I get my monthlies and bi-weekly numbers, and we always see what's going on. But it suits me and it suits my employees to just get out of their way and let them do a good job. I mean, who wants somebody looking over their shoulder the whole time?
Interesting. We're running out of time, but I want to get your perspective, Gary. You've been in Dubai, UAE, less than a year. What's it like living here, and how do you view the region, not just in terms of Vithit, but how do you view the region as an emerging market, right? In terms of Vithit, you're in established markets. You haven't entered other emerging markets like LATAM or India. Do you think the Middle East is the right one to be in, and would you be optimistic around the region?
Yeah, very. It's a really open society. I didn't know what to expect because I came here on holidays for the odd weekend and we had a distributor here, but I didn't know what to expect. And I'm really, really enthused and really happy that we moved here. And I think it's a great base because it's totally a different part of the world than Ireland geographically and strategically as well. So we can move from here to a whole different area. I mean, the plane rides from here, you can just get to completely different places than you can from Ireland, obviously bar 7 hours trek. So it's a really open place. I'm very happy we moved here, albeit the one caveat I would have is it's still stressful setting up here. I know that they've done a lot of work to try and set up, visas being simple and all that kind of stuff, but it's still setting up bank accounts, company bank accounts. That all takes a long time, and that is a bit of a stress. But other than that, it's been fantastic. So we're basing ourselves here. We're going to start distributing in the region. Kuwait is next, then probably Oman, and then perhaps Saudi. So it's a great base to have here.
So you're optimistic around the GCC, not just the UAE. The UAE's economy numbers are quite good at the moment,
yes.
But you see perhaps that Vithit do well in Saudi Arabia and in Kuwait.
100%. And I've been told in the past, oh, Vithit won't work here. Like I was explaining earlier about the distributor in Belgium. I never believe it because, and especially here, I can really see that Dubai is open for trade, and I see the other countries opening now, and they're ready for these kind of brands, and they're, excuse the pun, but they're thirsty for it.
Yeah.
People really want change. They want something different. They don't want to be drinking the same old sugary drinks all the time. And the younger people are now telling their parents, like kids in school, 16 years of age, kind of go, Mum, Dad, why are you drinking that? And they want something different. So you got to give it to them.
Interesting. We could keep asking questions. Very interesting story. But just want to kind of finish on then, you created the functional drink category in some markets. There's obviously already a category in the UAE, but maybe it isn't in Saudi Arabia. Do you think that you need to be more patient there for that category to develop out and for lifestyle patterns to change?
Yes. Yeah. Like I say, that we always put ourselves in a mainstream category. We don't really say, look, we are so different that, you're going to have a hard time trying it or tasting it. We put ourselves up beside all the sugary drinks in the main shelves. Yeah. So we want to be there beside the main guys. So we'll get a taste and we'll do tastings. And once people try it, they kind of go, oh yeah. But yes, of course, in Saudi, for instance, for a consumer, they haven't had that much of a broad spectrum of products that they've had over the past. So they're only getting them now. But as a society, they are really hungry for change. They want extra products. So I personally believe it'll be a little bit slower than Dubai per capita, per head, but people there really want change and they really want to try these kind of products. So absolutely.
Brilliant. Good positive note to finish on. Brilliant story. Thank you for sharing. Thanks, and we'll follow Vithit in the future.
Great. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So what a story, what an impressive guy Gary is and what he's built. And he just celebrated his birthday yesterday. We were chatting afterwards and he's off kite surfing and doing things like that. So he's loving Dubai, but he's really built a great business in Vithit. And I know his product, our producer Shahir was taking the Vithit drinks off the table. So I know his product is a hit, and wishing him all the success. And so thank you to Shahir and thank you to Ali as well, who put this show together. Please do subscribe if you're listening on Apple, leave a review, and then if you're listening on any other audio podcast, please do send it to a friend, or even just listen to any of the other episodes as well. Not only that, you can watch the shows on smashy.tv, or any of the smartphone apps and some of the smart TV devices as well. We'll be back next week, 11 o'clock on Friday, with another episode. Enjoy the weekend.